Hello, everyone, and thank you all for joining us today for a learning and growing webinar on resiliency, which is handling pressure, but not losing your cool. Our presenter today is Dr. Berdikar of Concord University. My name is Sidra, and I'm a member of the marketing team here at Hawks Learning. We will have a Q&A session at the end of this presentation, so please enter any questions you have into the Q&A module as we go, and we'll answer them at the end. I will now hand it over to our presenter for today.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Berdikar. Thank you for providing me the opportunity here today to present on resiliency, handling pressure by not losing your cool. As I said, my name is Dr. Berdikar. I am an assistant professor of psychology at Concord University. So when we're talking about resiliency, first, let's look at the objectives of what I'll be covering here today. I'll define the concept of resiliency. I'll also list different traits of resilient people, understand grit and its importance, identify strategies to build resiliency in yourself and others. So first, let's take a moment to watch a video, and I'll talk a little bit about the video, and then we'll jump right into our presentation here. So here we go.
After being cut from his high school basketball team, he went home, locked himself in his room, and cried. He wasn't able to speak until he was almost 4 years old, and his teachers said he would never amount to much. Was demoted from her job as a news anchor because she wasn't fit for television. Fired from a newspaper for lacking imagination and having no original ideas. At age 11, he was cut from his team after being diagnosed with a growth hormone deficiency, which made him smaller in stature than most kids his age. At 30 years old, he was left devastated and depressed after being unceremoniously removed from the company he started. A high school dropout whose personal struggles with drugs and poverty culminated in an unsuccessful suicide attempt. A teacher told him he was too stupid to learn anything and that he should go into a field where he might succeed by virtue of his pleasant personality. Rejected by Decca Recording Studios, who said, "We don't like their sound. They have no future in show business." His first book was rejected by 27 publishers. His fiancée died, failed in business, had a nervous breakdown, and was defeated in 8 elections. If you've never failed, you've never tried anything new.
As you can see, there are so many individuals on this video who failed and were then able to come out of such events and become resilient people. I mean, could you imagine losing 8 elections? Or could you imagine getting rejected by 27 different publishers? Or can you imagine getting fired from a place, your company, basically, because they thought that you were no longer a good fit. So just imagine what would happen to a lot of us who get fired or lose their position or not be accepted for something. So these people were really resilient. They had a unique gift to be resilient. I shouldn't even call it a gift because it's not really a gift, because we'll find out that all of us can grow resiliency within us. So let's talk about what resiliency is. Resiliency means bouncing back from a difficult experience. It is common, not rare or extraordinary. It's not a gift, as I previously mistakenly stated. Is not a personality trait or something that we are born with. These include thoughts and behaviors that can be learned to better cope with challenges and stressors. Um, a lot of us during the pandemic struggled a lot in a variety of different ways. And some of us are still bouncing back from that situation. That is resiliency, our ability to bounce back from a difficult situation. A lot of us have learned how to bounce back, had no other option. Some of us are learning, and there's a group of people who haven't gotten there yet. And this presentation will essentially help us understand how we can build that resiliency. So why is resiliency so important? Resiliency skills can help people not just get through life challenges, but thrive and flourish. Resilient people can tolerate change, stress, uncertainty, and other types of adversity more effectively. So these individuals have the ability to get past changes in their lives, stressful situations, or uncertainty that occurs in your life. And that's really helpful, and that's really important in people. Resiliency is very important. Why do I need to have resiliency? Prevent burnout. It enables you to develop a reservoir of internal resources. So when things do go bad or when there's uncertainty, you can go back to those resources in order to help you do better. Provide strategies for dealing with difficult situation. All of us go through some kind of difficult situation in our lifetime. Resiliency helps us uh, get past that difficult situation, improve self-confidence and self-esteem, increases effectiveness in your work. It really pushes you to do better. So the next part of the definition part is, what is grit? This is not something that you eat, but that's something that you grow. It's passion and perseverance for very long-term goals. It's stamina, sticking with your future day in and day out for years. It's not just for today, it's not just for tomorrow or from a year from now, but it is for very long-term goals. Working really hard to make that future a reality. Working endless times, doing things that you are uncomfortable with doing, or things that you have not done before in order to get to your goals, following through on commitments, not procrastinating, not giving up, following through with what you say that you're going to do, and not giving up very easily. As you all know, probably, people see success as a linear line. We go from A to B, and if I do C, D, and E, and F, I'll be successful. Unfortunately, that isn't true. Um, Success is a roller coaster of a ride, and people go with ups and downs. And that's when grit comes into play. So let's see what happens next here. Mindset. So people with grit comes mindset. There are two different kinds of mindset that Carol Dweck talks about. She talks about fixed mindset and she talks about growth mindset. Fixed mindset leads to a desire to look smart and therefore a tendency to not do a whole lot. Okay, so people who have a fixed mindset tend to think that they have certain qualities or certain intelligence, and that's it. They have no way of improving that. Growth mindset is the complete opposite of that. People believe that they have the ability to change and grow their mindset. Essentially, if they fail at something, they realize that they have the ability to grow from it. They have the ability to look at the mistakes and make sure that their ability to correct them. And the hope is that by doing this, they're going to improve themselves, not just at what they failed, but also overall life. This is a huge, huge thing um, that we can help people build within themselves. This understanding of what growth mindset is and how it can be beneficial for people. So again, what is fixed mindset? People believe their qualities are fixed traits and therefore cannot change. People document their intelligence and talents rather than working to develop and improve them. So I have these qualities and that's it. I can't learn new things. That's what a fixed mindset individual might say. People also believe that talent alone leads to success and effort is not required. Talent can get to certain level, but after that, you need to put in a lot of effort. You need to improve your talents in order to move forward in life. And this is where people get stuck with the fixed mindset. Growth mindset, on the other hand, people have an underlying belief that learning and intelligence can grow with time and experience. This is important for people with growth mindset. They truly believe that they can grow from any situation. People believe they can become smarter. They realize their effort has an effect on their success. So they put in extra time, leading to higher achievement. So doing the things that you love and fixing the mistakes that you make in order to perfect something is essentially a growth mindset. Um, these individuals thrive in their environment, especially when they reevaluate and reflect on the things that they have done. And this is really, really helpful for people to grow. So, okay, so we know what fixed mindset is and growth mindset is. And now, how do we develop basically resiliency, and how do we develop growth mindset? How do we work at becoming better at growing our mindset? We need resiliency in all domains. So there are 4 different domains that I'm going to go over here: physical domain, mental domain, emotional domain, and spiritual domain. So we'll start with physical domain. Physical resiliency is basically reflected in physical flexibility. This looks like endurance and strength. Um, in terms of food, food choices, sugar and processed food replaced with vegetables, fruits, whole grains, and proteins. Exercise, walking, gym, exercise, yoga. Okay. Sleep, at least 8 hours of sleep every day. And this is a big one, and this is hard for people sometimes. Limiting substances and risky behavior, being aware of alcohol and drug use. There's a new study that has come out about alcohol, how alcohol, even a little bit of alcohol can have an impact on how your brain develops over time. So this is new to us, and it's something that's important for us to understand. In order to develop resiliency in the physical domain, it's important to do all of these things. I can only imagine how many people actually get 8 hours of sleep. This is very, very rare that people get 8 hours of sleep. Whenever I ask my students how many hours of sleep that they get, they tend to say somewhere between 5 to 6 hours of sleep. Some might say that's pretty good for a college student, but I would actually say that's not really good. You actually need up to 8 hours and maybe sometimes even more for a certain group of people for your brain to develop fully. As you know, people's brains don't develop until you're in your mid-20s. And if you're not getting enough sleep and there isn't enough time for your body to heal, it's pretty easy for you to get sick more often. Your immune system does not work properly, which can have a whole lot of ripple effect in your life. So the next part is the mental domain. Here we have mental resiliency is the ability to have mental flexibility and the capacity for integrating multiple points of views. Sometimes people have a hard time seeing things from other people's point of view, seeing things from where other people are sitting. We get stuck in our ways of seeing things from our point of view because that's the easiest way to look at things. So sometimes with mental flexibility, it might be helpful for people to see certain things from other people's point of view. Breaking down challenges into smallest obtainable steps. Rather than taking a whole thing of a project or a thing or a challenge that you might have in your life, breaking down into pieces, doing the easiest first, and then doing the hardest next, and then doing the things that are a little bit easy but also hard, like somewhere in the middle, because this gives you opportunity for you to work on these things. And then finally, becoming your own scientist, gather data before hypothesizing or acting on it. Reality checking. I always tell people this idea of reality checking, because sometimes your thoughts lie. Sometimes they lie in a way that can cause serious stress. A lot of people get intrusive thoughts, which sometimes you believe those intrusive thoughts are real. That's one. Number two, sometimes people believe that having intrusive thought makes them crazy or there's something wrong with them. Intrusive thoughts are pretty common. However, doing a reality check by saying things like, is this real? Or did this, or is it that my brain basically lied a moment ago? Because your brain can lie. You do not have to believe everything your thoughts tell you to do. So please be aware that sometimes thoughts can lie to you. Emotional domain, ability to self-regulate difficult emotions. When you're having a bad day or have a negative emotions, how do you self-regulate yourself? How do you stop yourself to say, okay, I'm having a bad day or a bad, situation here. Okay, how can I regulate myself in this moment? Communicate feelings appropriately and interact respectfully and safely. Sometimes certain emotions might come in the way, which could lead to issues. where people might have outbursts or people might just start crying. Not saying crying is not a good or a bad thing. I am saying that sometimes it's necessary for people to communicate things in a proper way rather than having outbursts. Respond sensitively and effectively to others. Make sure that you are reaching and speaking to people in a responsible way, in an effective way, in a sensitive way. Assuming that all people can get heard with your words, it might be necessary to be mindful of how you might come across to people. Spiritual domain. Have a positive or optimistic outlook. Sometimes this is hard. I can remember when we were in the middle of a pandemic back 2 years ago, it was so difficult for us to figure out how will we ever get out of this pandemic. I know we're still in the middle of it, but we have done a heck of a better job than we did when we were in the middle of those huge spikes before we received vaccines. We all had negative thoughts. The outlook wasn't that great. It looked very grim. We were not able to get out of our houses, do things that we enjoyed doing. People couldn't travel. People couldn't do a whole lot of things. People's future was not really in good terms. Engage in regular reflection, meditation, or prayer. This can look in a variety of different ways. This can be sitting quietly for 15 minutes and doing nothing. I always say doing nothing is doing something. And that's very, very important part of people's lives, where you just sit and do nothing. It's one of the hardest things to do, but make it a habit. It will help you in so many different ways. Be aware of your own values. Make sure that your values make sense to you and you follow them. They're there for a reason. If your values don't make sense, please make sure that you're reflecting on them and trying to figure out what your values are and what makes sense to you. So hopefully that gives you all an idea of how these 4 different domains can lead to potential growth. And hopefully you are able to practice some of these areas so you can have a better understanding of your own resiliency so you can put them in action. If you were a fixed mindset person, the hope is that you will grow as individuals and be able to better yourself using the growth mindset model. If you're interested in understanding more about fixed and growth mindset, Carol Dweck does have a book called Mindset, which is really, really helpful in understanding the difference between growth and fixed mindset. So that is out there for if people are interested in reading. So the next thing that I have here is a video on grit by Angela Duckworth. Angela Duckworth is a scientist, is a researcher, is a psychologist who has done a tremendous job of understanding grit and how it's helpful for people's growth. So she talks about these, or the video talks about these 4 different areas. Develop a fascination, daily improvement, greater purpose, and of course, growth mindset. So here we go.
I recently read the book Grit by Angela Duckworth. Angela's a psychologist at the University of Pennsylvania, and she's obsessed with finding out the answer to the question, who's successful and why? She's conducted studies involving national spelling bee champions, elite military training graduates, and top corporate salespeople to determine what was the biggest predictor of their success. She wondered, was it talent or was it effort? Now, our society would have us believe that it would be talent. We have the tendency to marvel at natural talent and overlook the importance of effort. Surveys show that we commend people who put in the effort, but we don't actually believe it can compete with natural talent. We often discount our own abilities when going up against people who have a higher IQ or appear more naturally gifted. But Angela has found the following to be true in study after study. Where talent counts once, effort counts twice. Angela explains this using a simple formula. Talent times effort equals skill, and skill times effort equals achievement. When you apply effort to any base level talent, you get skill. When you apply effort to skill, you get achievement. The science shows that grit, the sustained application of effort towards a long-term goal, is the biggest predictor of lifelong achievement. For some, it's an inconvenient truth. Certain people like to see natural talent and use it as an excuse as to why they would never achieve what those people can, and don't even bother trying in the first place. But for others, it can be liberating, knowing that they're not doomed to mediocrity due to a lack of talent. If they put in the effort, they can achieve great things. Sure, there are some limitations. All of us can't make the NBA. We're not all 6'9". But you could become one of the best players in your local basketball league. By remembering that talent counts once, effort counts twice, we can be hopeful that we can one day become more than we think we can, that we can achieve great things despite not winning the talent lottery. But being gritty is hard. Resisting endless temptations to quit or experiencing failure is extremely difficult to deal with. But Angela says we all have the ability to grow our grit if we direct our focus in 4 specific ways. First, develop a fascination with what you're trying to do. Second, strive to improve each day. Third, remind yourself of the greater purpose. And fourth, adopt a growth mindset. Charles Darwin admitted to not having great quickness of apprehension. To discover the mysteries of natural science without possessing supernatural intelligence, Darwin developed an obsessive fascination and was said to keep questions alive in the back of his mind, questions that related to what he was observing, that drove him to discover the connection between all living things. His deep interest in the natural sciences and constant questioning led him to the breakthrough that we now know as the theory of evolution. So what questions are most intriguing to you? Find the questions that fascinate you, and you'll find the capacity to stay gritty while trying to achieve something great. Next, aim to improve yourself every single day. Compete with who you were yesterday. Olympic gold medal swimmer Rowdy Gaines once said, at every practice, I would try to beat myself. If my coach gave me 10 100-meter swims one day and asked me to hold it to 1 minute and 15 seconds, the next day, he would give me 10 100-meter swims, and I would try to hold it to 1 minute and 14 seconds. Angela says that the refrain of all paragons of grit is that whatever it takes, I want to improve. It doesn't matter how excellent they already are. So how can you carve out time each day to push your abilities and seek constant and never-ending improvement? The third way to grow our grit is to remind ourselves of the greater purpose. Angela conducted a survey of 16,000 adult Americans to determine what was a bigger contributor of grit, obtaining a feeling of pleasure or feeling a greater sense of purpose. She found that people on the upper half of her grit scale experienced a similar level of pleasure in what they were doing, but she found that higher levels of purpose directly correlated to higher levels of grit. Angela says, the most gritty people see their ultimate aims as deeply connected to the world beyond themselves. You could be a bricklayer simply laying the bricks for a cathedral, or you could be a bricklayer building the house of God. It's largely up to you to determine what purpose or greater meaning your work has. Whatever you come up with has the capacity to raise your level of grit. The last way to grow your grit is to develop a growth mindset. Bill McNabb, the past CEO of Vanguard, the world's largest provider of mutual funds, interviewed leaders within the organization to see who were successful and who weren't. He found that long-term success was dependent on a core belief. Those who believe that I can't learn anymore, I am what I am, this is how I do things, routinely failed to move up to a senior level. To be gritty, you need to scrap the theory that your abilities are fixed, because it's simply not true. Neuroscience has shown that we have an enormous capacity to change our brains and learn new skills as we get older. The brain is plastic, and you can mold it through sustained effort and experience. Reflect on a time when you started something new that you were scared you couldn't learn, but you actually did. Use the memory of that experience to disrupt any beliefs that your abilities are fixed. In the end, Angela says that learning to stick to something is a life skill that we can all develop. By remembering that the science shows that grit matters more than talent and that we all have the capacity to grow our grit, we can develop the confidence to start taking action despite how untalented we think we are. That was the core message that I gathered from Angela's book. She has much more material to help you understand the science of achievement. I highly recommend it. If you would like a one-page PDF of the insights that I gathered from Angela's book, just click the link below and I'd be happy to email it to you. If you already subscribe to the free product.
So as you can see, grit is an important part of resiliency, and how grit plays an important role in developing resiliency. Once again, if you develop a fascination, you work at it every single day with a greater purpose and building growth mindset, you can build resiliency and grit within you. So basically, resiliency, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that builds resiliency within you. This is one of the important things about anything. It's how you react to certain situations rather than, or how you think about the situation that can determine, make or break a situation. Make sure that you have the ability to take a step back when things don't go the way you thought things were going to go. So you can reassess and work at building whatever situation that you were building. With that, I would like to say thank you for this presentation. If you have any questions, please put the question in the Q&A chat area, and I would be happy to answer them for you. So it doesn't seem like anybody has any questions today.
Do you have any closing remarks that you would like to make?
No, I mean, all I would like to say is do your best to grow your fixed mindset into growth mindset. And my hope is that you will develop grit and resiliency, and that will help you today and in the long run.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, looks like that's all the time we have for today. Thank you, Dr. Berdikar, and thank you all for attending today. If you or any of your fellow instructors are interested in presenting for our Learning and Growing webinar series, please submit your proposal to the Learning and Growing website, which I'm going to go ahead and link in the chat right now. We will be emailing you a copy of the link to view the recording once it's available, and I hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, I am going to go ahead and close out the webinar.
Yep.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure working with you again.
Yep, thank you. Have
No
a good
problem.
one.
You too. Bye.